Hi, everyone. Hello. As usual, we are here today with our Macmillan Education Time session. So let me have a look at the chat box. I can see a lot of people already. I am Romina. I work for Macmillan Education. Welcome, everyone. Okay, I can see already people texting. And as usual, just to check that the chat box works and that you can hear me, please do let me know where you're writing from. And hello, okay, I can see that the chat box is all right, perfect. So I just would like to welcome everybody and to explain some things about the technical parts that are going to happen today. So as usual, you might already know about this, but as usual, you are going to receive your certificate after the session, and the certificate will be on your part, on your section inside mondadorieducation.it/attestati. So in that case, you are going to find your certificate after the session of today. If you are not here with us, unfortunately, because maybe you don't have time or you are planning to see the recording a little bit later, you will be able to see the recording right after this live on the in the YouTube playlist. So on the Mondadori Education playlist on YouTube. Oh, fantastic. I can see people writing from Milan, from Naples, Florence. Fantastic. Okay, so the chat box is working fine, and I can see a lot of people from all over Italy, which is very nice. I travel a lot for my job, and I sometimes touch all the regions. Today it's really, really sunny here in Milan. I'm from Monza, so I'm happy to welcome everybody. And now, okay. So now I just would like to again introduce our fantastic speaker for today. But first, once again, you're going to receive your certificate in the attestati section, so mondadorieducation.it/attestati, and I'm going to be here for the whole duration of the session. So if you need help from my side, I'm going to be there, and I'm going also to help you and Laura with the questions at the end. So after this introduction, I'm going to welcome our speaker, Laura Broadbent, for today.
Hello.
Hi, Laura. Hello. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for joining.
Super. I can see already a lot of people in the chat box commenting. So it looks like it's going to be lively today.
Great. Excellent.
So today you're going to be speaking about multimodal literacy with Laura. Now, Laura, the stage is yours. I just wanted to tell everybody that we've been working together for quite some years now. So Laura is based in the UK, but she travels a lot. So she's a speaker, teacher, trainer, and we are really, really, really happy to welcome her today with us. So I will be here all the time, and the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank
See you
you
later.
so much. Thank you. See you soon. Hello, everyone. Lovely to be with you for your afternoon, and thank you very much for joining. I will go through the talk, and there'll be some questions that I will directly ask you during the session. But if you have any questions during, please do put them in the chat box, and I will pick them up as we go along. And also at the end, we'll have a bit of time for some questions and answers as well. So, and you know, it'll be me and Romina trying to catch your questions. So please just ask as we go along. And if there's anything that you want a bit more information or a few more details, then just ask. So if we can start with the slides, please, and then I will be able to give you, thank you very much, the outline. So for the next 45-50 minutes, we're going to be talking about multimodal teaching, as you know, teaching and learning, I should say. So we're going to start with, first of all, what's the meaning of it, to make sure we're all working from the same page. And then we're going to look at different input strategies and different output activities. So what are you as teachers giving to the students, and then what are you asking the students to produce for you? Then we will look at some activities that are multimodal with the input and output to give you some ideas for your classes. We've got a few ideas just for your exam practice. This is obviously something you are always under pressure to be doing with your students. So it's useful to have some ideas that you can do when it comes up to exam time, just to help, you know, really give your students a different way of practicing for their exams. Then we will be looking at some AI tools. And the idea here is just to give you some very simple ideas that you can use just to help you change basically the mode you're using as easily as possible and with as little preparation as possible for you as teachers. And then finally, we will finish off with how to give multimodal feedback. So we're looking at your whole class teaching from a holistic view to help you interact and communicate with your students, hopefully a bit more effectively. So let's start. We're going to first kick off with multimodal teaching. So what is multimodal teaching? In fact, what is a mode? So we have different modes, and these are just the senses. So we've got visual, using our eyes, what we can see. We've got auditory, the things we're listening to. Linguistic here is reading and writing, of course, something you'll be very familiar with. Kinesthetic is moving around. So this includes different moving around. This can include walking around the room or dancing and running, but it can also include gestures and facial expressions as well. So any type of movement like that is included. And then last of all, we've got spatial. And this is really how things are organized. So as you can see, for example, on this slide, we have text to the left with small icons. And then we have a chart or a pie chart to the right. And we've got a title at the top of the page. So for example, you might not, I think it's probably not so normal to see a title at the bottom of a page or to the right of the page, because it's just not how we organize the texts, and it's not what we expect. So it's those kind of things that you'll be using a lot for your students when they're working with different kinds of texts, reading and writing or creating them themselves. So here are our different modes. And so, of course, multimodal is using more than one of these. So it can be two or more. And we'll have a little think in a bit if we think that more than two is a good idea, or if it's a bit too much for teachers and for students. So it'll be interesting to hear your opinions. So what are the benefits? Now, I imagine a lot of you do multimodal teaching anyway. So the idea of this webinar really is to just give you some concrete and practical activity ideas that you can take away, just to remind you and to stimulate and invigorate your ideas a bit more, based on something that you kind of already know about. So, of course, when we bring different modes into our classrooms, which is, you know, it's when we walk into a classroom as a teacher, Or as a student, you walk in, or before you even walk in, you can hear what's happening in the classroom. So you're already beginning to create opinions and ideas about the class. Then you see what's inside. Is the classroom light? Is it dark? Because that'll give you very different feelings. How are the tables organized? What are the acoustics like? Are the windows open? Are the windows closed? So already, our life is multimodal. So therefore, reflecting this in our teaching essentially just reflects the real world outside and inside the classroom. So it's really, beneficial to engage in the different senses, because that's how, many people are working anyway. And remembering that we also rely on different senses. So, you may have or be a person who says, for me, it's really easy to remember a face. If I see someone's face, I will recognize them again, even if it's in a different context. Or you may have someone else who says, I remember names really easily. And someone else might say, I can't really remember a name, or I don't know how to spell a word unless I see it written down. So then they're using the visual as well as the auditory. So we all have our different ways that we prefer to work and our strengths. So by working with multi-modes or different modes is really helpful to help all of our students. I'm imagining that most of you have quite a lot of students in your class, maybe 20, 30. And so they will all have different ways of, the strengths and different ways that they prefer to take information in, but also use their English. And so by allowing for this different modes in our classrooms can be really helpful to include all of our students. So it's not just the students who are, really, me, I know the answer. And everyone else then begins to feel very small and quiet. But if we're asking our students to, not necessarily just speak in English, but maybe, we're using diagrams, they're using recordings, they're using writing, but in different ways, infographics, pictures, then we're allowing all the students to be able to use their English as well. And then it creates a bit more of a respectful classroom, because people start understanding that just because they don't have their hand up to answer the question, they still know the language and they're still able to join in and participate in the class. It's also really helpful. I don't know if some of you, when you try and remember something, let's say, for example, if I'm going to the supermarket, I try and I've forgotten my phone, I haven't written down a list, and I'm trying to remember how to, what things I need to buy. So sometimes what I'll do, a trick they say is, to walk around your house in your mind visually, and each room you see an object. So let's say, for example, I walk into the kitchen and I see a loaf of bread on the table. I walk into the living room and I see a bunch of bananas. And I walk through and I see these images. So therefore, this will help when I get to the supermarket. I need to buy bread. I need to buy bananas. So it actually helps the memory retain information by using different modes. So it can be really useful if someone's reading a word, but they also hear it being said as well at the same time. That helps the information go into the brain and then drop down into the long-term memory. So it really helps for that as well. And then also, it's just fun. So, if you ask me to, I don't know, mix it up a bit. So instead of, very traditional teaching where read the textbook or listen to the teacher in silence, and then in silence write down what you need to do. This, of course, will suit some students, but it won't suit others. And also, it might not suit some teachers either, because it requires a lot of energy from the teacher. Whereas if we have lots of different modes being used, it's really stimulating and invigorating for the brain. And so these are the kind of benefits that we can see from using multi-modes. Now, what can be difficult is sometimes as teachers we might feel, oh gosh, I need to be using all these different things. I need there to be sound. I need there to be writing. I need there to be walking around. How do I fit all of this in when, quite honestly, I need to meet this curriculum? All my students need to learn all of this language. We need to finish the textbook and we need to be ready for the exam. I don't have time to already be, thinking, how do I add in these different modes? So this can feel a bit of a pressure for teachers. So hopefully these ideas that we go through today will try and release that pressure for you a bit. And another thing is just to, limit maybe the modes we're using. So as I mentioned before, maybe we don't need to use all of them, or we don't need to use half of them. Maybe just 2 is enough. And each class will be different. And so, it's as teachers for you'll know your class. So particularly for your students at the age they are, the young teenagers age, of course, they're digital natives. Lots of you may be digital natives anyway. So it's, again, as we mentioned before, it's reflecting their normal life. So if our students are seeing information that way all the time anyway, outside of the classroom, why not do it sometimes in the classroom as well? Because that's where they'll feel comfortable. And then that'll help to build skills, knowledge and confidence ready for the exams. It will also help with our critical thinking. So, of course, we're seeing different formats. The slide you see on the screen is different to the writing you see on the notebook. And it's different to the sound you hear coming from my words when I'm speaking. So all of this creates, a really nice mix of perspectives for our students to use and for us teachers as well. Also a really, nice thing to do with the students, particularly at this age when they're beginning to want to take responsibility, want to be more independent, is to give them options. So, for example, if we give them 2 or 3 options, if they choose one, they will feel like they're being independent and, making the choices. But of course, as a teacher, you have given them specific choices. So it's both sides are making choices, which really helps to boost engagement, make our students feel really proud of their work. And it's nice as a teacher to see, the different styles and productive language that our students are coming up with. So they are our benefits. And so in the chat, I would like you to put 1, 2, 3, and just very short answers. I'm going to challenge you to write all of your answers for 1, 2, and 3 in, I would say, 6 words. So 6 words for question 1, maximum. 6 words for question 2, maximum. And 6 words for question 3, maximum. You may only need 1 or 2. This is the challenge. So first of all, when did you last use a multimodal approach? Could have been today, could have been last week or last year. What did you do? This is going to be quite hard in 6 words, but give a text, student speak. And then how did your students react? That can be an emotion, or it can be a yay, a sound, or a word. Okay, so I'm going to give all of you 1 minute to put in the chat box your answers 1, 2, and 3. Nice, we've already got a mix. Month ago, last week, today, this morning, last year. Last year's not actually that long ago, is it? Showed films, brilliant, and our students to interpret the lines. Nice, lovely, I can't. The day that I give the webinar about multimodal, I can't say the word. Brilliant. Last week, they found it funny. Not fun. I hope that was in a good way, Simonetta. I hope it was. I hope they, kind of enjoyed it, as well as video and asking questions. Lovely. Yes. Last week, nice. Edpuzzle, brilliant. So using games, using puzzles, as you say, Really nice way to have students think in a different way. They're having to find a solution or an answer to something. Let my students create a quiz. Yes, about the clear topics. Great, they were engaged. Fantastic. Videos and questions. Homework posted on the classroom. Brilliant. Digital comics. Nice. Sometimes with students we say graphic novels instead of comics, and then they think it's really, really mature and adult. End of a video about inclusion. Nice. And asking questions. Nice. So really nice sometimes to ask students, their response to a video, not necessarily what was in the video, but how do feel, for example, or have you
Hi, everyone. It seems that Laura got... Okay, here I am. It seems that Laura got some problems with her internet connection while we are waiting for her to come back. She will be back in some minutes, I think, a couple of minutes, okay? So while we wait for her, I just wanted to remind you that we are gonna have our last sessions of this series, so the series going from January till May, on the 14th of April. So on the 14th of April, we're gonna have our last sessions with our other speakers. Sorry, I am checking also if Laura is back. Okay, we should have a couple of minutes more and then she should be back with us. So I just wanted to, again, to remind you that we're gonna have on the 14th of April our last sessions of this series, and then we're gonna have the series during back to school as well. So in this series, we've treated a lot of different topics. So I'm happy that today you are talking about multimodal literacy, multimodal teaching, because I can see that lots of people are using these techniques already. So, okay, Laura is here with us. Perfect. Great. Can you hear me, Laura?
I can. Hi, everyone.
Okay, super. She's back. So I'll be back when needed.
Sorry about that. So also, thank you for continuing to put lots of comments in the questions. So unfortunately, I don't have time to go through them all, but I can see nice vocabulary quizzes, brilliant, giving and asking for directions that were really funny and surprised, brilliant. Nice interactive activities with self-correction, brilliant. So I'm seeing lots of videos and lots of, oh, nice, we've got a project here, nice one, Christiana. Puzzles, crosswords, nice, text on iPads, brilliant. So it's really, really good to see all of these, guys. These are really, really nice. And so that's why I kind of want today to make sure that we go through examples that use technology and examples that don't, so that in case you don't have technology or it's not working like mine isn't today, as we can see, then you've got plan B. So, that's really nice, Deborah, that they felt comfortable in expressing their feelings and emotions. That's really nice to hear, because that's not always the case. So that's really, really good. Fantastic. So let's, good, Paula, they were interested in it. This is great. So let's start looking at some different multimodal inputs. So you may know some of these, you will know some of these, but also it's just, as I mentioned before, it's nice to remind ourselves sometimes. So first of all, Many of the textbooks we use these days are multimodal. So these are just an example, but I imagine all of yours are relatively similar. So we've got, first of all, a video here. We aren't in a video game. Wow. So as I can see by your comments that, you know, it's already you using lots of videos, and then you know, making use of the videos. Lots of you were asking questions afterwards, or seeing student responses to videos, or asking about what's in the videos, and with different activities. So of course we can have a transcript, as we can see in the example here on the bottom left under the video. And so, you know, there are many different things we can do with the transcripts. And of course, as we have a transcript, that is linguistic reading. And obviously the video is watching and listening. So we're using all the different modes there, with the auditory and the visual. So we're already multimodal here. So what, you know, it can be quite easy to present lots of different modes for our students, but we have to make sure that it is adding to the learning experience. So it's either helping our students remember language, or it's helping our students use language in a meaningful way. So some of you, I remember saying you were doing puzzles and games. So, you know, is it helping our students use the language with a meaningful end? Because we don't just want to be throwing at them, you know, all of the different senses that they're going to be using with the language, without a clear objective. As well, here we can see on the right we've got a map, and then the vocabulary is practiced with Kahoot, which I'm sure lots of you are very familiar with. And so also this can be really nice for different parts of the class. So it can be used at the beginning of the class to remember what happened in the last class, or what happened, the language they learned. It can be used at the end of a class to practice what students have just learned. It can also be used at the beginning, or the time or period of time around the exams, just as a revision exercise. And it can also be used in projects work. It can be used at the beginning, you know, at the end of a stage, or it can be used also to check students' comprehension if it's going to be a long-term project, especially with CLIL subjects that some of you have mentioned you're teaching. So, you know, just having this one mode is really useful for different things, and then adding it with a different mode allows us to work on these different skills. So, for example, here we've got the countries, continents, nationalities with the visual map. So we're helping students remember me talking about the shopping list, imagining the house with lots of different things in it. This is the kind of memory retention that the visual map will be helping. So the idea of this activity is to help students remember the language, but we could use it with a different mode. We could use it with listening to practice our students' pronunciation. So it just, you know, the mode we choose reflects the objective, the learning objective we have. And it's really nice because as you teaching your class, you will see what students need to practice, what they need to improve on. And so then you can just change the mode to change with what your students need to practice. So it really helps us to be agile. It helps us to respond to our students quickly without having to do too much preparation, you know, and change your whole lesson plan. So we have visual first of all. Now, these are just some examples. So let's say our students, okay, so here we're using grammar. We're learning the grammar, present simple and present continuous. And as you can see here, it's in a diagram. Some of you might call this a chart. But we can also practice it in video format, which is shown on the right. You could also do illustrations of the present simple and the present continuous. I am absolutely terrible at drawing. But it used to be sometimes my students' favorite class when I would try to draw to reflect, for example, the present simple and present continuous. Or students would absolutely love trying to draw themselves. Now, what we can do to help our students. So we'll have some students who love drawing and are like, yes, this is my moment. We'll have other students who will be really, really embarrassed and really shy because, they don't feel very confident with drawing. So one way we can help this is to tell our students, no one is going to see what you draw. And that's a rule that you follow to help your students then relax and draw. So what we can do with our different modes, particularly if our students aren't used to doing a certain type of activity, is to give them the rules that you will follow and they will follow at the beginning to help them feel comfortable, and then they know what is expected of them. So, if you said to me, oh, draw a person driving a car. Now try and draw it to reflect the present simple and the present continuous. I may feel, quite shy, but then if you say to me, this is just for me to see as the teacher and no one else is allowed to see it. And you can even have students turn so they're facing away from each other if your table setup allows. So, that helps. Or you can allow them to build something around their piece of paper so they feel less embarrassed. So, just when we change modes, we do have to think of these extra things sometimes. And it may be that we don't think of it. We do it in the class. We learn what we need to do, and then we do it afterwards. And that's absolutely fine. So with the graphs as well, graphs and charts are really, really useful because with lots of different CLIL topics, this is, media literacy that our students need to know. So it can be really, really helpful, excuse me, for them to use these different types of visual representations of language. Then we've got auditory. I think you're going to be pretty familiar with auditory. I don't know, how many of you have ever used music or sound effects in your classes? Yes or no? Yes, brilliant. This is really nice to see. Yes, music. Oh, nice. I love classes with music. Yes. Okay, fantastic. Music, nice. Sound effects are harder, partly just because they're harder to find. And, it can be kind of harder to use sound effects. But I will give you a couple of ideas of how to use sound effects as well as music. Music can be really powerful to help students either settle down or think of different things. So that's really good to see that you guys are using music. Brilliant. Right, I'm going to skim through the next few because I want to spend a bit more time on the activity ideas. So with our linguistics, we've got articles, reports, captions, stories. We have different types of writing that our students need to do. And so as we mentioned before, as you can see here, spatial and linguistic overlap anyway, because the setup or the organization of a text is really, really important. And the organization belongs to each type of text. So here, we've got the Welcome to the City Library advertisement on the left, and we've got a description of a fictional character on the right. So as we can see, they're completely different layouts. Podcasts, nice one, Michaela, nice one. And so, when we're teaching our texts, it's really nice to have we need the layout, but it's also nice to sometimes hear the text being read out if it works for the type of text. So, it can be really useful to read out or have our students read out stories or articles or reports, but it can be a bit more difficult to read out, for example, an advert for like we can see on the City Library, because if we can't see how it's broken up, into different sections, it won't really make sense if we read it out. So therefore, the auditory might not be a good mode for this type of text. Whereas perhaps kinesthetic might be, because we can ask the students to move. If we cut up the different pieces and ask them to move them into the correct place, that can be the mode that works better for this type of text. So our modes will be reflecting, again, our objectives. So with the kinesthetic, how many of you have had your students walking around the classroom in the last month? Yes or no? No. I don't blame you. It's not an easy thing to do. And also sometimes our classrooms are really small and we have loads of students. Okay, no, yes, very often, no. Nice. Find who game. Brilliant. No. It's quite good to see this. It's a kind of a bit of a 50-50 split here. Playing online games, the digital board, nice. Nice to have a digital board to use. Yes. Oh, nice. Yeah. It's always fun to do directions while walking around in the classroom, and then our students walk into the wall or something, and it's everyone enjoys it. Yes. Okay. Brilliant. So really nice to see some of you are able to move around. And as I say, it's not always easy. Yep, going straight, etc., with your eyes closed, brilliant. So directions works really well, and also doing surveys. So, for example, here we can see talking about last weekend, and asking our students questions. So so as we can see, for example, as a warm up in the textbook, the activity is in pairs to discuss which activities do you usually do at the weekend and when do you do them. However, we could change this into a survey, for example, and this could just be written down, and we can just have students write down a list of the different activities, and then they just go around the classroom and either write the student's name next to the activity or just write the numbers, how many students, and it just gets them walking around and speaking to each other. This could be as a warm-up or at the end of your class. So it's just a way to get your students moving around. Also, it's nice to have it in the middle of a class, just to kind of get your students up and moving around. So I am going to skim through now to the more ideas because I see that time is flying. So the multimodal input examples, you know them and we've talked about them. So the different activities. So here are a couple of ideas for your beginning or an end of a class. So mystery objects. So you can put objects into a bag or a box, someone's rucksack, whatever, and you can have students take the object out and describe it. Now, they can describe it to practice the vocabulary, or they can describe it to practice their, certain types of language. I like, I don't like, because. This is round, hard, black. We use it for. It's made of. It's made by. You can practice the passive. This object is used by teachers to write. So, these different things, you can use it just to practice different types of languages. Now, the emotion walk, this is useful for not only practicing emotions, but it's a nice way of seeing how your class feels at the beginning of a class, at the end of a class, or how they feel about an exam the next week, for example. So first of all, you can call out the emotions, and then your students try and show the emotion in their bodies without speaking. But then you can say, so after that, so they've had a go, doing all of the emotions with their body, and then you can say, how do you feel today? And, you know, some of them will look tired, some of them will look excited, some of them will look bored. How do you feel about the exam next week? Some of them will be nervous, some of them will look confident. So it's quite a good way of eliciting from your class how they're feeling about things. But it also can be, how did you feel about the activity we just did? And then your students will respond. So it's another way of asking them. Instead of asking and then them saying the answer, they can show it. They can also, again, draw it or tell each other about it as well. So these are just small things you can do at the beginning or end of your class. Your communication skills. So having a walking debate. So we're used to having sitting debates where your students, you can either have a whole class, you can either have half the class or smaller groups as well. And, you know, you can allocate or assign different roles to your students. You will have the person who is organizing it. And it's always important to have a person who's kind of controlling the debate, because they can get quite excited. And so it's important to, you know, have this control and make sure people listen to each other as well. So you can have let's say one side of the room is agree, one side of the room is disagree. And as a teacher, or you can have different students reading out statements, and students move to the agree or the disagree side of the room. Then they can justify themselves. They can either justify by speaking as a whole class, they can justify by telling the person standing next to them, or they can justify by writing it down, another mode. So this is another way. Again, you can use this to be practicing debate topics for exams. You can be using it to get feedback from your class if they enjoyed. So I really enjoyed the activity at the beginning of class. Agree, disagree. So then the students don't need to speak, they just move. So, you know, there are different options for you to do. You can also, as we see here, there's also the survey. So you can, of course, do the survey walking around the classroom, and you can also do survey, you know, online with Google Forms or, you know, something similar. And then students can either do that in class or at home as well. So then, you know, we're bringing in that, you know, technology side to things. Moving on to, these are just a couple of very small creative ideas. So as we mentioned just before, sound effects, which we don't use very often. So you can use sound effects to create an atmosphere. It may be a busy city. You may just need to open the window for that. It may be countryside. It may be a storm, it may be a party. So you create the sound effects, and then you can have students either telling a story or describing the place or describing people in the place. Or you can do it the other way around. So some students create the story and some students create the sound effects themselves, or you can have the sound effects as, you know, audios. So they're listening and then they're speaking as well. And it's just to create the atmosphere like you're doing with your music. Another really nice one is a collaborative mural, partly because it's collaborative and also because it's showing students' work. So I don't know from your experience, but it's often the case that students really enjoy showing their work. When it's put up on the walls, they really take pride in it. So if you give them a theme, the perfect city will be interesting because people will have different ideas of what a perfect city is. And then so they have a huge piece of paper, or they have, you know, a big piece of paper, and then they're all stuck together to create the mural. And then so everyone works on their own piece or in pairs, puts the mural together, and then they present that section of the mural. So you can use this to practice, you know, your there is, there are, countable and uncountable nouns, descriptions of places, different places around the town and city. So language like this, you can use to practice and to present the different murals. So these are just some ideas that you can use for certain types of language. So full activities for multimodal learning. So this is the input and the output. So first of all, we've got word sorting. So if you're practicing vocabulary, you can have your students write vocabulary on little pieces of card or pieces of paper that they cut up into smaller piece cards. Then your students will take turns, put them in pairs, and they take turns in taking a card. One of them says the word and the other one says a definition for the word. So first of all, they're just practicing saying that. And then when they say their definition, then they write it down on a separate piece of card. Then you can have your students leave their cards all around the classroom on the tables, hopefully. And then the idea is that students will go around and they have to find the matching pairs. So if they pick up a word, then they've got to go around the classroom and find the definition that matches it. So it helps your students categorize their words and definitions and also move around the classroom together. Sound word clusters or mind maps. So here you can play a sound effect to describe a topic. So as we said, for example, the city or the beach. And you display a mind map. You can do it on the board or you can do it digitally. Just with 1 or 2 or 3 words. Play the sound effects repeatedly and have your students fill in the mind maps with more things. So just by listening to the different sounds of that place will activate students' prior knowledge. And so that'll be things, new vocabulary they've learned, or if you're trying to see what vocabulary they already know on a topic. Video, as you all use video loads, you can work with the subtitles. So as we mentioned before, you can have the transcript and you can have students watching the video with subtitles and then they guess the topic for the practicing with the predictions with topics. And then you can give them the transcript or have the subtitles on screen, depends what mode you want to practice. And you can just block out some of the words, the key language that you're practicing from the transcript, and then the students have to listen and fill it in. So it's a way of creating a gap fill, basically, without having to do too much preparation. You can also have students cross out words themselves, swap their transcript with someone else, and then they need to listen to the words that their partner has eliminated. So that's a really nice way to help students begin to understand gap fill exercises that they see in exams. Also, you can have with the word list. So if you give students a word list, key language that they're practicing, and they just have to tick it off as they hear it and see it on a video. So remember, if it's in a video, it can be the image they see as well as words they hear. So not always everything is on a transcript. They may be images of things that they see that are not in transcripts. So that's when you're using the visual and not just the auditory. Working with grammar, your movement verb tenses is similar to the walking debate. So again, you can have, for example, one corner of the classroom is the first conditional, the other corner is the second conditional, at the front is the third conditional, and then at the other side is 0 conditional. And you can have your, you can say a verb and the students, a verb or a sentence, and the students will walk to the corner they think that sentence is. Now, the issue with this one is that students who are not sure will just follow the other students. So another thing you can do is write down sentences and give them out to students. And then they silently go to that corner. And then you can ask them to read their sentence out to the rest of the class. This can sometimes work with some classes. You have to be a little bit sensitive with some students that, you know, might not feel confident reading their sentence out and the rest of the class listening. So you know your class and you know if this activity will suit them or not. Picture dictation, as I've said, I'm terrible at this, but it's always really fun. So you have an image and put your students into pairs. One of them describes the image, again, either focusing on vocabulary or certain grammar. And the second partner will listen to the image and draw it, and then compare the two images. Why is this useful? Because remember, in some of the exams, students have to describe images. So this is really, really good practice for them for their exams. Another one is the mystery bag sentence builder. So again, you can have any old bag, as we mentioned similarly before. You can put any objects in there. And the students have to pull the object out and say a sentence with the correct grammar. For example, I've never seen a pen before, if they've taken a pen out of the bag, or with question tags. I have a pen in my hand, don't I? So you can use it for grammar, and it's also, you know, with the kinesthetic of, and also a bit of mystery, what object are they going to pull out the bag? Dubbing is obviously when we have speaking over videos, voiceover, you could call it as well. So you could have a video that's in silence, take off the sound, and have a video that's got at least 2 characters. Then students go into groups, they choose a character each, and together they will write a script for the video, and then they will perform it with their voiceover on top of the video. And again, you can have them practice put certain types of vocabulary or grammar, or just let them respond to the video because they're responding to the things that are happening in the video. So again, it depends what your learning objectives are. Working with texts, you can have your students, they can either read a type of text, so it can be a story that I've mentioned here, but it could also be an article or a report, basically a longer text. And they have to just highlight the key vocabulary that you've been practicing, and then they have to create their own text. It can be the same type of text, or it can be a different type of text. So it depends if you want them to transform it or not. Then we can go on to social media writing. Some teachers love this, some don't. So it's completely up to you. So first of all, you elicit the template for social media writing. What are the rules for social media writing? You choose the type of social media and you first go through the rules, because this can be really helpful to teach students how to learn about and go through the rules of other text types, such as articles, reports, diagrams, charts. So it's just teaching them how to think about that before they start writing. Then they can read examples. So in this case, reading example posts. And in this case, they can create their own hashtags or comments. And another really good thing for this is because it's teaching the students to express themselves in few words. So it helps them to be concise, to the point, and effective at communicating written. So this can be really helpful for that. Our gallery walk. So we have our students where they have a text or an infographic, and they walk around and they put them all around the classroom. So you can either get ones yourself as a teacher, or you can have students, whether they've made an infographic or a text for homework, they bring it in, they put it around the wall, then students go around and they write down the main points from each one. Then they go into pairs, they share the points from each one, and they write a summary of all of them. So this can be a really nice way of using lots of different modes and practicing key language skills. Narrative writing. This can be things that you've kind of already done a lot of, I think, which is reading a story. You can listen to it as well, watch a video that's related, and then make a storyboard for their own idea as well. So this can be really helpful just to, again, plan texts and plan writing, because as we know, planning is almost as important as writing the text. So I realize we're running low on time. So exam practice. Silent discussion. This is one of my favorites. So we get a big piece of paper, probably like A3 or A2. Then you, depending on the size of your class, you divide your students into groups or not. And you write a topic question in the middle, a debate topic or a question in the middle, and students have to write their responses and encourage them to respond to each other on the piece of paper. They are not allowed to say anything at all. And it's good if they're all using a different color pen, so you can see who's writing. And then when they respond to the different arguments, then you give them a time limit. When they finish, they make their own notes on all the main points that have been written down, and then they plan and write their own essay that is based on the main points that they've all said in the discussion. The escape room, you can print out different types of questions, exam questions, gap fills, sentence writing, and then you put them in different tables around the classroom. Put your students into pairs or teams, like groups, and they have to work. So give them each a different route around the questions, and they can only unlock the next stage by successfully finishing the exam question. So they finish the exam question, check it, and if it's correct, they move on to the next one. And they only escape from the room, so you could put the last one on the classroom door if you wanted, if they've managed to answer all of the exam questions correctly. So it's just a way of adding a bit of competition into your exam practice. The last two here, we've got question and answer. I'm just checking people can hear me. Can people just say a quick yes or no if they can hear me? Okay, people can hear, that's okay. I will continue. So we've got questions and answers. So you give your students answers and they have to write the questions. Then scatter them around, different students, different answers and different questions. And then they have to walk around the room and find the partner that's got their matching question or answer. So it's a bit similar, like, thank you for your answers, guys. I'm glad you can still hear. So it's similar to kind of a survey when students are walking around finding each other, but it's the question and answer that they're finding. So it's a really good way of practicing what to expect with questions and answers in exams whilst walking around the classroom. And the final example we've got here is changing the medium. So generally, if you give your students a longer text and then they have to change it either to postcard or a dialogue or a chart or an infographic. So they are transforming the information into something that's shorter, which is really, really useful for them to learn the key points in the texts that they're reading to help them with the exam questions that they're doing. Okay, I'm not sure, Romina, if we've got lots of time to go through multimodal inputs. I think we have 1 or 2 minutes. So I'm just going to show you, there are only 2 slides anyway. Some of you might know some of these anyway, but just to show, you can change your text to speech. You can modify text to make them more complicated or more difficult or a different type of text. You can create stories, and you can create story starters for your students, creating quizzes and games. You can change information into infographics. You can change it into images, so we can practice the image descriptions and surveys here. So these are just some examples for you of how to change the inputs. I realize the time is up. I don't know if, Romina, it's possible to share the slides with students afterwards. I don't know.
Absolutely, yes. And if you wish to go on a couple of minutes, we have time. Just a couple of minutes. Okay.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So we have the different outputs here. So the key thing here with using the AI, the reason, various different reasons for using it. So it's partly so you can change the mode, as we mentioned right at the beginning of the talk. It's really useful if you want your students to practice something in specific, then you just change the mode. So either the mode that you give them, the information that you give them, is it in a survey, is it an image, is it a video, and what you're asking them to do. Are you asking them to create a comic strip, a podcast, a vlog, an animation, a storyboard, note-taking, presentations, infographics? So these things, you change the mode. So you use the AI to change the mode really quickly so you can help your students practice what they need to practice. So that's really the beauty of changing your different modes. I won't give the example. So this is what you would do with your class. When we said, to give them options to choose. So you can teach your students some language, and then you can say, okay, now you can tell me about your day or the city. You can list the different things in the city. You can draw the city, or you can record yourself doing a tour of the city. So these are different modes, and you give your options the choice, your students the choice. So by giving them the choice, you're giving them independence. Then they'll become responsible, and it'll be, really working to their strengths as well. And the last slide is different ways to give your students feedback. You can give it as an audio. You can also give it to them in Italian. Some teachers are against using Italian or, the first language, some aren't, but sometimes it's just really useful for feedback. You can record a video for them or show them different examples, examples of other ways that it's been done before. And you can show examples of, you did a really good job like this, or you could improve on it. And here's something to aim for. So the way you translate or communicate what you want your students to practice can also be multimodal, not just the English you're teaching them. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm so good. Thank you for staying on for a couple more minutes, and thank you for also staying here when I disappeared 45 minutes ago. So thank you for staying.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Laura. It was really, really, really interesting. I'm so sorry that we don't have time for questions today, but you everybody will be able to see the slides, to watch the recording if you need it, and if you wish. And I am reading in the chat box that a couple of you were having problems in terms of connection. I'm so sorry, guys, because I could hear properly, and I think also the rest of the teachers, so probably it was maybe a temporary issue in your connection. Anyway, so see you next time in the next session on the 14th of April. And for the moment, thank you, Laura, again. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I just wanted to remind everyone that you can find your certificate in the attestati section. So mondadorieducation.it/attestati. You're going to find that as well. So thank you very much, everyone. And see you next time then. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice evening.